Good morning and welcome to Michigan Farm and Garden, folks. The show this weekend is going to be very exciting. We were actually able to go out and shoot at Ag Expo on the grounds of Michigan State University. So make sure you watch the show and learn a little bit more about Ag Expo. Good morning, and again, welcome to Michigan Farm and Garden. Folks, you know, every summer we always look forward to getting out to Ag Expo at Michigan State University, and we were there, and just as always, it proved to be the hottest days of the year. So I really want to thank those of you that came up and watched the show and are big supporters of the show, and also that we're able to get out there and brave the heat and learn a little bit more about agriculture here in our state. Certainly, if you've never been to Ag Expo, it's a great opportunity to get out there. You are able to go to the horse farm, able to see some of the different equipment, just a really great place to get an overall view of Michigan agriculture. And certainly I had the opportunity to talk to some of the folks out there, and we'll have some of the folks on the show. This morning, my first guest is Eileen Gianotis, and Eileen is the director out there of Ag Expo, and we kind of talked to her to get a little bit of information, kind of learn a little bit more about what's going on at Ag Expo and what our opportunities really are. Then also this morning, we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about beekeeping and the bee industry, and then also to be able to talk a little bit about Tollgate. Tollgate is an off-campus location that they have at MSU, and they're doing a lot of different programming, some educational things, and we were able to talk with Clay O'Toney. He is one of the instructors out there, and he does a lot with the beekeeping and really talked about the opportunities and the importance of bees here in our state and what they mean to the industry, especially when we look at the nut industry and the fruit industries that we have in our state. And we'll also give you information, and if you visit us online, you can learn a little bit more, and you can even sign up for some of those classes, have some bees out at your place, really learn a little bit more about the industry, and also a little bit more about the different honeys, how those are regionalized, and the health benefits that we have there. Then I also have with me Charles Scoville. He works for Syngenta and pretty much covers the state and looks at crops, looks at production issues. So Charles and I talked about the crop. Certainly we know last year was definitely not typical at all. This year we had some of the rains. So Charles is going to share information with us on what the crop looks like, what the opportunities are, and tell us a little bit more about agriculture. Then I also had the opportunity to talk about Breakfast on the Farm with Nancy Thalen, and that interview we will have on next week's show. And we're really going to talk and really give a little bit more information about agriculture, and also maybe have a little reason to celebrate, because believe it or not, folks, August 2013 starts my 12th year. Stay tuned, and we'll be back right after the Michigan Farm and Garden Fact of the Week.
It's time for the Michigan Farm and Garden Fact of the Week.
This year marked the 34th Ag Expo, Michigan's largest outdoor farm show at Michigan State University. The show featured more than 250 vendors, exhibits, demonstrations, and educational sessions. Highlights included seed plots, ride and drive demonstrations, alpaca demonstrations, animal mortality management, and the FFA tractor driving contest. For more information about this year's or even next year's Ag Expo, go to agexpo.msu.edu.
This is the fast track to more jobs and America's energy independence. Advanced performance is here, now. Biodiesel, America's advanced biofuel.
Here at Ag Expo with Eileen Gianotis. Eileen, another great, I guess, hot-filled week.
Yeah, Jody, we always promise it's going to be the hottest week of the summer, and we never disappoint on that. So it always is the hottest week. with temperatures in the hundreds, so it's good, but there's a nice breeze. It was lots of fun. We're still banging it out here, so.
And free ice cream, so if you get hot, there's free ice cream.
There's free ice cream, and there's lots of water, and it's lots of fun, so I think people are even learning something in the heat, so.
Well, and what are we looking at as far as activities? I know a lot going on here.
Well, that's right. We have 250 vendors for people to come out and check out the equipment. It seems like there's a lot more equipment here this year, which tells us that maybe people are buying, and that's good for vendors and for growers. So, so that's going on. We have off-site demonstrations with the equine, tours of the equine research facility. There's also tillage demonstrations. There's ride and drives as usual. There's antique tractor pulls. So yeah, lots of fun.
Well, and lots of things I think for people to do. I know opening day, you had the governor here. I mean, also a lot of folks just coming to learn, but I think you're getting the attention of the right folks recognizing ag.
We are, and this year was pretty exciting because we were, our product center released an ag economic index. So it's kind of like a confidence index, and the good news is that the ag industry feels really good about the ag industry in Michigan, so that's great. And there's room to grow, of course. The governor talked about you know, exports and whatever he can do to help growers get their products out, he's going to do.
Well, and I know one of the things, I was lucky enough to be here for that, he talked about kids and careers, and we're kind of standing in an area that's really set up for kids.
We are. We're in the middle of the College of Ag and Natural Resources tent, where we feature everything from baby chicks being hatched to lectures about container gardening and a variety of other topics. So what the governor talked about is that kids and families need to know that ag is one of the most technical and science-based industries that they can get into, and so Michigan State is really the place to do that in Michigan.
Well, and I think too, you know, one of the things that strikes me, you know, we're standing in front of the Grow Your Pig booth for livestock. You can also learn about nutrition. I mean, you name it, there's just so much to learn and so much for kids to do.
That's true. So kids can learn about how much input it takes, and I'm learning too how much input it takes to get an animal to fair, to market, to that kind of stuff. And then they're also learning about what foods to eat to keep themselves healthy. And in extension, we always talk about it's for all facets of our life. So it's not just about ag folks, it's about everyone, because everybody eats, and we're not only talking about growing food, we're talking about consuming food and consuming the right amounts in the right varieties.
Lots of diversity, and you know, even we see that there's some programs going on where you have some lectures kind of over to the side, and I mean all kinds of things to learn.
Yeah, there have been some great lectures here about, and I say lecture, but it's really fun lectures in the summertime about cottage food laws, and you know, because people need to know that, need to have that information when they're making jam and jelly for market, and then also about things like what do I do with my tomato plant that's not growing like I want it to, you know, and tons of folks come out and ask those kinds of questions all the time here. So this is where we hopefully provide answers.
Well, and very easy to get to, and I have to say it's getting late enough in the day that you can kind of start to smell. When we had Chef Kwiatkowski on the show, I'm kind of starting to smell a little bit of that too with some of the good food.
Right, we had the food truck out here earlier in the week, and the concessions is here. The MSU Dairy Store is here giving out free ice cream. There are a few vendors giving out popcorn. So, you know, it's a good place to come and walk around, have some fun, learn a little bit.
Well, and I'm going to put you on the spot because you always love that, don't you? But certainly, you know, folks, this is going to air. The show's been, it has come. Right. But what do folks need to know to make sure they get it on their calendar so they can be here next year too?
So next year, the show's always in July, and look for the hottest week of July, because that's probably going to be it.
And we harvest. We harvest too.
Exactly. So I think the dates are around the 22nd to 23rd, 24th, 25th. So those are the dates for next year. Of course, we'll have lots of information out. We'll be on your show again, hopefully, and promo the next expo. But we're looking forward to just as fun and just as hot of a show.
Well, and I know we always talk consumers come out, but we don't always talk about vendors. If there are folks out there, what kind of vendors are you guys looking at for the show so they can get on the schedule too?
Right, so we look for almost anyone, anybody who's remote, even associated with ag and with consumer products. So like the Michigan Department of Ag is here, which is great. They have several booths. They're able to answer lots of questions. We have some legal folks, lawyers who are here who are also able to answer some questions. And they have booths as well as lectures. And of course, equipment dealers, you know, we're always looking to fill those. We're always looking for good demonstrations too. So people who are willing to kind of have their equipment driven around, that's always terrific.
Good. Well, Eileen, we appreciate it and we look forward to, I guess, another sweltering year next year.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming out.
Folks, if you haven't had the opportunity, Ag Expo is definitely the place to be. It is a little bit hot, but you know what? We're all here. We're all hot together, and you can always stop at the ice cream booth more than once. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message.
The Cherry Marketing Institute wants you to know about tart cherries. Cherry's red color comes from powerful antioxidants. Available year-round, it's easy to incorporate cherries into your daily diet. Visit choosecherries.com.
Michigan's 1,000 apple growers take pride in producing delicious apples from one generation to the next. From the Great Lakes come great flavors. Look for locally grown Michigan apples.
Have Jody speak at your next agricultural event. Go to jodylive.com.
Welcome back. We are back with Clay O'Toni. Clay, good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We are going to talk about something that I think most people take for granted, bees.
Honeybees are a wonderful resource for us. They provide us with over a third of our food that we eat, most of our fruits and vegetables and nuts. But for the honeybee, we wouldn't have those.
Well, and certainly when we talk honeybees, look at the industry, it's a very, very broad industry.
That's correct. There are many facets of beekeeping. There's the pollination, which I just mentioned, but there's also the honey that we have here today, as well as the beeswax candles. There are many things that are provided. Pollen that people use for protein substitute, propolis, which actually is an antibacterial, antifungal, antivirus. They're actually using that research for HIV. There's treatments that stop HIV through products that we provide from the honey hive.
So, you know, I always think it's so interesting because it's almost like we just keep going back to nature of more things we can do and more uses. And, you know, I know when we look at the honeybees, there's also different ranges when you look at, as far as the industry, from the small beekeepers to the larger beekeepers, just a lot of differences.
Oh yes, most definitely. The large beekeepers that mostly do our pollination, they have thousands, tens of thousands of hives. They've had some problems because of the number. You've probably all heard about the colony collapse disorder. Well, they're the ones that are experiencing that in a greater number, whereas the backyard beekeeper at the other end of the scale, they have usually 1 or 2 or 3 hives at their home, and they're able to take care of their hives a lot better because of the fewer numbers. And it's really important, though, to have both groups of beekeepers and everything in between, including our sideliners. They're more in the middle, 150 to 100, 150, 200.
Well, and certainly for us in Michigan, you know, you talk about the importance of the bees, looking at the different crops. For us here, I mean, I really think we need to probably pay a little bit more attention and learn a little bit more about that industry.
Oh, extremely important in Michigan because we have so much fruit industries here on the west coast, or excuse me, on the west side of the state and the east coast of Lake Michigan. We wouldn't have the cherries and the peaches but for the honeybees. And that's where a lot of the pollinators go with their bees up to the coast along the state of Michigan, or Lake Michigan, excuse me.
Well, and certainly looking at, and I know looking at products, such a diversity in the products, and very easy to find local products, I would think.
Correct. Ideally, you want to support local industry, and that would be your backyard beekeepers or your farm markets where people are providing locally produced honey from hives that are local. If you get natural honey that's local, there's a benefit.
Oh, very good to know, because I'm one of those people that always has allergies, and we use a lot of honey, so well, maybe I'm helping myself.
No, most definitely. It doesn't hurt, let's put it that way, but you want to have it local within several. Bees will go up to 5 miles to collect the nectar to make the honey, but ideally they want to stay a lot closer. It's just like you come in with your groceries. You don't want to schlep it for a couple blocks. You want to bring it right into the garage, into your kitchen. The bees are the same way. They tend to go close to get their nectar, which they turn into honey for us. And that brings in with it the pollens. And it's the pollens that people are digesting when they're taking a little bit of the honey that helps them to build up immunity against their allergies.
Well, and we're looking at pollen and pollination and that, huge cycle and great opportunities in the state. And I think a lot of us see the bees out there and really don't think through that story.
Oh, it's extremely important. You're definitely right. It's a lot of hard work, I'll be honest with you, to keep bees successfully. I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard now of a lot of the losses of bees, but if you're able to take care of your bees, they do survive from year to year. The real fear is that we're losing the number of breeder queens that provide us with all the bees that are used across the nation. There's approximately 200 queen bees that are responsible for most of the bees that are shipped across the country. And that's not a very diverse genetic base. One of the things we're doing in Michigan, in fact, at one time, Michigan was the leading queen producer in the country. We've lost that title, but we're trying to get an industry growing for raising queens locally to survive our climate.
Well, and I think that's one more time, we talk a lot at Ag Expo. Michigan is so on the cutting edge, looking for those opportunities. And I know, Clay, part of what you do, you work at Tollgate, really looking at some of those opportunities and kind of working with some of that research. I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit as to kind of have you tell us a little bit about Tollgate and what goes on.
Well, MSU is very fortunate to have a 160-acre farm in Novi, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. That's where I primarily do my work with MSU. That's not to say that campus here in East Lansing, they have a wonderful facility with wonderful professors such as Zachary Hahn and Walter Pett and Megan Melrath, who have done excellent research for us. But going back to Tollgate where I'm at, we teach beekeeping from March through October. So we take a class from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. And what's really nice is the students actually have their own hive that they keep on the farm at Tollgate. They work their hive, but they also get to see the other hives. We have 40 students, and so they get to look at 40 different hives over the course of a whole year. And they get to take it home. I, as the beekeeper at Tollgate, keep my own hives there that we use for educational purposes to show them what happens in overwintered hives. Overwintered hives would be the hives they would deal with the following spring. And so they get to see what's going to happen all year long, as well, hopefully will happen the following spring when their hives survive the winter.
Well, and I think that's such a neat opportunity. And then certainly, folks, if you're learning how to work with those bees, then you have so many opportunities for all the great products.
Oh, most definitely. One of the classes we do, in fact, this August 4th, we're going to be teaching a class on honey extraction, what to do with the products, and there are several products. One of the ones I didn't mention was meat. We're going to have a mead making class. So you take your honey, you ferment it. That's one of the first products that alcoholic products that were able to be utilized by the settlers besides the hard ciders.
I didn't even know that we had an alcoholic product from honey.
Well,
see, you learn something all the time.
Well, it's a good fun thing to learn, I'll tell you that. We enjoy it.
Well, and certainly, you know, when we look at opportunities, look at the future, are we looking for more folks to be able to get into the industry?
Yes, we definitely are. It's a wonderful industry. It's a lot of hard work, as I mentioned, but there's a lot of opportunities. And especially, like I said, for the backyard beekeepers, anyone should be allowed to have bees at their home within reason. You can't have a postage-sized lot and expect to have 100 hives. But within reason, with the Right to Farm Act, it's a wonderful opportunity for people.
Well, and certainly too, I know folks, we want to make sure they get out there and look for that local and support that local economy.
That would be a wonderful thing. I'd really appreciate it. And thanks for stopping by.
Tony, thank you so much. Clay, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And folks, you know, we talk all about the diversity of Michigan agriculture. Certainly one of those industries is the bee industry and the beekeeping industry. Make sure you visit the website. We'll give you more information and you can find out how you can get involved, and maybe you'll even want to take one of the classes. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message.
This chicken is beak over claw for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one chicken may not be too much to cluck about, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing, our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Welcome back here at Ag Expo, and I'm here with Charles Scoville. Charles, it's great to have you here.
Well, hello, Jody. Great to see you as well.
It was fun to kind of get here and run into you, and you know, we were talking and thought we probably should just talk on screen. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to talk crops.
Well, thanks, Jody. Yep, I work as an agronomist for Syngenta. Been doing that for 15 years. Get a chance to travel around all of Michigan and see how the crops are doing every day.
Well, and that's the question, I think, this time of year. You know, last year was so strange, and this year we still have some issues.
Well, we do. You know, you look at the spring, and we had more rain in the month of April than we had the entire year last year in the growing season. And so that put the crop in a little later this year. Most of the crop was planted that first 2 to 3 weeks of May, and it's had a lot of rain ever since.
Well, and now here we are at Ag Expo, just like always, and it's just sweltering hot.
Oh, it is, and you know, it takes heat to grow this grain out there, and usually the crop's pretty good up till about 90 degrees. After that, it starts to shut down, and so the good news is, though, this sunshine will help harden off that crop a little bit, and it'll just push those roots down deeper, looking for more moisture right now.
Well, and I think that's so important because especially usually when it's a really wet year, you just don't always get the good root penetration. I mean, really, folks, kind of like your gardens. The weather really sets the tone for that plant.
Absolutely, it does, and you know, for the corn, the yield is pretty much set right now, and we just have to have some decent weather to finish that off. The soybean yield, they're just starting to flower right now, and so that soybean yield is going to be determined between now and first part of October.
So a lot of crop still left, especially when we look at what could happen with weather.
Absolutely, and you know, the wheat crop is about the only one that's done right now, and as long as we can have some nice weather to get it in the bin, it looks to be a pretty good crop out there right now.
Yeah, I've spent some time over with crop improvement talking about wheat, and people seem pretty happy so far with the wheat crop.
Absolutely, the yields are coming in, I think, better than what was expected. Most of the quality is pretty good too. There's a few spots here and there, but yeah, it's going to be nice if we can have a little more dry weather to get the rest of that crop in, and then it's time to get some more rain to finish off the corn and the soybeans.
It's kind of that farmer weather dance. We need it dry for the wheat, but we're going to need the rain for the corn and the soybeans, and you got to hope you just time everything just right.
Well, and of course, don't forget the guys trying to put the alfalfa up too for the hay.
Yeah, we had a bunch of hay that got wet this year. I think more because we just felt like we shouldn't keep waiting.
Oh, absolutely, and some of that first cutting just got in a couple of weeks ago, but just having hay this year is nice compared to the drought we saw last year.
That's right, and you have a little livestock too on the side, so you're one of those like our family farm. You got to have some hay.
Absolutely, and of course a lot of more hay got planted this year too. When you look at $5 and $10 small bales of hay out there, that caused a lot more interest in raising hay out there too.
Well, and I certainly think too, Charles, especially with your role at Syngenta, when we look at weather, when we look at challenges, what we saw last year could have really been devastating, but when we look at genetics, when we look at the crops, we've just come so far in agriculture.
Oh, it's amazing when we can allow the plants genetically to protect themselves. It allows us to get through some of these stresses that 10, 15, 20 years ago, we might not have had a crop.
Well, and two, I think when you look at that host system, when you look at the inputs, I know on the wheat crop, if you were out there and you were using high management, this is one of those years that made a huge difference.
Absolutely, and farmers are trying to produce more crop on less acres every year, and they're just getting smarter about doing it, and that makes all the difference.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons, and probably folks like you that come at Ag Expo, all the technology, there's so much changing. This is a cool place to be able to come and kind of really learn what's on the cutting edge.
Absolutely, because you're talking to the experts in the field at all these different booths. There's so much diversity from the mechanical inputs to the genetic inputs to the fertility inputs. I was even at a field the other day where the biggest challenge he had was getting the moisture and water away from his field, and all kinds of folks here talk about tiling and irrigation and all those things we can do to help moderate that food production here in the U.S.
Well, and I think too, it's so important in that we have conversations like this, because when we grew up on the farmers' kids, it was so different. We didn't have GPS. You actually had to steer the tractor, and some of those things have just made us so much more efficient.
Well, of course, we didn't have cell phones and iPads and everything that we had to check while we were driving the tractors either, right?
That's right, that's right. Well, and as we look ahead, Charles, certainly you've been in the industry long enough to kind of see how things have changed. What do you really see ahead, and what do you see as some of the opportunities out there?
I think some of the biggest things we see ahead are things like the drought-tolerant corns that are not only in the infancy of development right now, but are going to really revolutionize the water use efficiency, because water has continued to be our limiting factor out there. And then as we look at that, also helping those corn plants better protect themselves from the insects and diseases that are out there trying to lower those yields. And we're not going to see more ground coming into production. And so again, it comes back to making more use and more efficiency out of every single acre we can put in production.
Well, and I know when you look at the trends, the yields for corn, the yields for soybeans, even our yields for wheat, they're increasing so dramatically.
Oh, they really are, and it's not just the quantity, but the quality is improving too, and that just makes a better product for the consumer.
And that's really what we're all here for about, and I love those new bumper stickers that I've seen, if you're eating, thank a farmer, and I think it's a good time again to be an ag.
Absolutely. You look at all the different industries across Michigan, and this is the one industry that has continued to show growth even through the other challenges that we've seen out there in the industry in the last few years. And I don't see that changing at all in the near or distant future.
Well, and I think too we're seeing it, and you work a lot with farmers as well. They seem to just have maybe a little extra kick in their stride, or things in ag. It seems like we're starting to be appreciated more, and the opportunities are there, and it just seems like it is a good time, but it seems like it's also a time when folks are appreciating the farmers and ready to learn a little bit more about agriculture.
Well, I think so, and farmers love nothing more than to grow food, whether it's livestock, whether it's crops. It's the feeling of accomplishment when you can put in a hard day's work and feel like you're helping to feed the world and make your community a better place. And that, I think, is what people in agriculture have done for years and will continue to do, because we live in the environments and the communities we're in. We drink the water, we eat the food, and we're part of the social community there. And that's just what makes agriculture so unique and different as an industry, I think, in the U.S.
Charles, that was just said wonderfully. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Let me just grab you and talking real quick about the crop.
Well, thank you, Jody. Always good to see you, too. You take care.
Thank you. Folks, certainly lots of opportunities in agriculture. A very good crop we're looking at this year. And again, if you haven't had the opportunity, make sure you get out there and learn more about agriculture, because it is absolutely amazing.